Don't touch him. The words cut through the ballroom so cleanly that even the string quartet seemed to lose its place. 1 second, I was crouched behind the stage with a towel in one hand and a broken champagne flute glittering near my shoe. The next, every face in the room had turned toward me, which was unfortunate, because being stared at by 300 wealthy strangers had never been on my list of career goals. My name was Noah Bennett, 24 years old, 5'9" on a generous morning, and currently employed as the least glamorous person inside the Sterling Grand Hotel. I cleaned up after people who owned islands. I emptied trash cans filled with receipts worth more than my monthly rent. Most nights, I was invisible, and honestly, invisible paid better than noticed. Tonight, however, Grant Holloway had noticed me. He was one of those polished alphas who smiled without warmth and wore a tuxedo like it had signed a contract promising never to wrinkle. I had been trying to slip past him when the scent patch beneath my collar began to fail. Cheap medicine. Bad timing. A truly inspiring combination. Grant stepped into my path, his expression changing the moment he caught the faint sweetness in the air. An unregistered Omega working this event? He asked, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. That seems irresponsible. My stomach tightened. I'm registered, I said. And I'm working, so unless you plan to help with the glass, I should probably get back to it. Humor was my emergency exit. Unfortunately, the door was usually locked. Grant leaned closer, not touching me, but close enough to make the space feel smaller. You should come with me. The company clinic can verify your condition. Then the crowd shifted. Caleb Sterling walked through it. I had seen him in magazines, on financial news, and once from across the lobby at 2 in the morning, when I had been pushing a cart full of cleaning supplies and trying not to sneeze into a bucket. In person, he was taller than I expected, broad-shouldered in a black suit, his sleeves pushed back just enough to reveal dark tattoos winding over both forearms. He looked like someone had taken a dangerous rumor and taught it how to wear cufflinks. His gray eyes moved from Grant to me, then to the peeling edge of my scent patch. Something unreadable passed across his face. Not disgust, not curiosity, recognition. Don't touch him, Caleb said again. Grant gave a thin smile. I haven't. Good. Keep it that way. The room went completely still. Caleb removed his jacket and held it out to me without stepping closer. He did not drape it over my shoulders. He did not assume. He waited. That small pause unsettled me more than any command could have. I took the jacket. His scent surrounded me at once, cedarwood and cold rain, strong but strangely calm. Cameras flashed from the edge of the ballroom. Caleb turned toward them, his expression becoming the kind that probably moved stock prices. This Omega is under my claim, he announced. My heart forgot how rhythm worked. The guests whispered. Grant's face hardened, and I stood there wrapped in a billionaire's jacket, thinking only one thing. I had worked in Caleb Sterling's building for 11 months, and until that moment, I had not even known he knew my name. 72 hours earlier, my biggest problem was a coffee stain worth several $1,000,000. At least, that was what I assumed when the dark liquid spread across a contract sitting on Caleb Sterling's desk. I stared at it in horror, holding an empty paper cup in one hand and a cleaning cloth in the other. The signature page slowly turned brown. Somewhere in the universe, an accountant probably sensed a disturbance and began crying. I had been cleaning the executive floor for 11 months, always after midnight, when the offices were silent and the important people had gone home to houses with more bathrooms than my entire apartment. I liked the quiet. Quiet did not ask why an Omega was working 2 jobs. Quiet did not notice the cheap scent patch hidden beneath my collar. Quiet definitely did not spill coffee on international merger documents. I pressed the cloth against the paper, which only made things worse. Excellent, I whispered. I have invented wet paperwork. My cart stood 20 feet away, stocked with industrial cleaner, trash bags, and absolutely nothing designed to rescue a corporate empire. I considered replacing the contract with blank pages. I also considered moving to Canada. Both plans had weaknesses. The office door opened behind me. I froze so completely that even my thoughts stopped moving. Caleb Sterling stepped inside, loosening the cuff of his white dress shirt. He had no security team, no assistant, and no visible reason to be in the building at 1:30 in the morning. His dark hair was slightly out of place, which somehow made him more intimidating. The tattoos along his forearms disappeared beneath his sleeves, black lines vanishing under expensive fabric. His gray eyes moved from me to the ruined document. Silence stretched between us. I prepared to be fired, sued, or possibly launched through a very elegant window by the power of billionaire disappointment. I can explain, I said. The coffee became ambitious. Caleb looked at the cup. That was mine. Then technically this is shared responsibility. His gaze returned to me. I had never spoken to him before. I had barely seen him up close. Yet he studied my face as though he had been expecting to find me there. My stomach tightened. The patch beneath my collar had begun itching again, a warning that the discount suppressants were wearing off too quickly. I tugged my uniform higher and reached for the contract. I will report the damage to my supervisor. Leave it. I should clean it. You are shaking. I looked down. My fingers were trembling around the cloth. Too much caffeine. That cup was empty before you entered. Of course he knew that. He probably had cameras watching his coffee. I set the cloth down before I dropped it too. Caleb walked toward the small refrigerator behind his desk, removed a bottle of water, and placed it several feet from me instead of handing it over. The distance felt deliberate, respectful. When did you last eat? He asked. That is not usually part of a termination meeting. This is not a termination meeting. That is comforting, unless it is a lawsuit meeting. His mouth almost moved. Not quite a smile, but close enough to make me wonder whether exhaustion had damaged my vision. Then he glanced at the identification badge clipped near my waist. It had flipped backward hours ago. My name was hidden. Still, he said it clearly. Drink the water, Noah. Every joke in my head disappeared. I had worked in his building for nearly a year without speaking to him once. Yet Caleb Sterling already knew exactly who I was. Before I could ask how he knew my name, thunder rolled across the city and the lights flickered hard enough to make both of us look toward the windows. Rain struck the glass in silver sheets, turning Manhattan into a blurred watercolor of headlights and shadows. A warning tone sounded from the ceiling. The building had entered emergency lockdown because of flash flooding near the lower entrances. Elevators suspended. Exterior doors sealed. Estimated delay, 3 hours. I stared at Caleb. He stared at the ceiling. Of course, I said. Nothing improves a possible firing like being trapped with the person who owns the building. You are not being fired. You keep saying that, but I have seen horror movies with friendlier beginnings. He picked up the ruined contract and dropped it into a recycling bin. Several million imaginary dollars died without ceremony. Then he nodded toward the water. I drank because my legs had started feeling unreliable, and collapsing in front of the chief executive officer seemed like a poor way to negotiate job security. Caleb ordered food from the private kitchen downstairs, but the service elevator had also stopped. That left us with crackers from a cabinet, 2 apples, and a jar of almonds that looked expensive enough to have a financial advisor. We sat on opposite sides of the conference table while the storm pressed against the windows. The silence should have been awkward. Somehow it was not. Caleb removed his jacket, then rolled his sleeves above his elbows. The tattoos I had noticed before were more intricate up close. Black branches crossed one forearm. A compass rested near his wrist. Thin lines circled pale scars that disappeared beneath his shirt. I looked away too late. You can ask, he said. I was not staring. You were studying. That sounds more professional. He traced the compass with one thumb. This one is for my younger sister. She used to say I needed directions whenever I became too much like our father. His voice changed on the final word, becoming quieter and colder at the same time. I pointed toward the branches. And those names. I looked closer and saw tiny letters hidden among the ink. People you lost. People my family failed. That answer settled heavily between us. The man in front of me did not resemble the photographs in business magazines. Those showed a perfect suit, a controlled expression, a billionaire who could buy silence by the acre. This Caleb looked tired. Human. He caught me watching and lifted one eyebrow. What? Nothing. I am adjusting to the possibility that you have emotions. Do not spread it around. I laughed before I could stop myself. The sound felt strange in that enormous office, small but real. Caleb looked at me with an expression I could not name. Most people see the uniform first, I said, surprising myself. Then they decide whether I am worth noticing. His gaze did not move from my face. I noticed you before I noticed the uniform. The room seemed to shrink by several feet. I reached for another cracker just to give my hands a purpose. Then heat sparked beneath my collar. Sharp. Wrong. I touched the edge of my scent patch and felt the adhesive curling away from my skin. Caleb inhaled once. His shoulders went rigid. The faint scent of cedar wood deepened around him, but instead of coming closer, he immediately stood and stepped backward until the conference table separated us. Noah, he said carefully, what exactly did you take tonight? A suppressant, I said, although the word came out thinner than I intended. Caleb stayed on the opposite side of the conference table. Every line of his body held unnaturally still. What brand? He asked. I reached into my pocket and placed the small silver packet on the table. The affordable kind. His eyes dropped to the crooked label. That is not a brand. It is when your bank account has stopped believing in choices. Another wave of heat moved beneath my skin, followed by a dizzy rush that made the office tilt slightly. I gripped the back of a chair. Caleb moved on instinct, one step forward, then stopped himself so quickly that the air seemed to tighten. May I come closer? He asked. The question surprised me more than the dizziness. Most alphas asked permission only after they had already made a decision. Not yet, I whispered. Caleb nodded once. No argument. No wounded pride. He called a private medical service and placed the phone on speaker so I could hear every word. The doctor explained that the medication might contain an unstable scent stimulant and instructed me to drink water, lower the room temperature, and remain near a trusted person until the symptoms passed. Caleb adjusted the thermostat to 65 degrees, found a clean blanket, and placed it halfway across the floor between us. Then he added water, crackers, and a cold towel beside it, creating what looked like the world's most expensive emergency picnic. You can take them when you are ready, he said. I lowered myself onto the carpet and pulled the towel against my neck. Do you always build supply stations for distressed employees? Only the ones who insult my almonds. They tasted judgmental. His mouth shifted again, almost smiling, but his scent had grown stronger. Cedarwood. Rain. Something warm beneath both. He turned away from me and braced his hands against the windowsill, looking out over the storm. I could see tension in his shoulders, the careful rhythm of his breathing. He was affected. He was also doing everything possible to make sure that did not become my problem. Do you often lock yourself across the room from attractive omegas? I asked, mostly because discomfort made my mouth reckless. Caleb closed his eyes briefly. No, that answer lacked detail. I am trying to remain respectful. You can be respectful and informative. He looked back at me, gray eyes steady. Only from the person who could make me forget what kind of alpha I want to be. The room went quiet except for rain against glass. My heartbeat stumbled, then raced to recover. I should have made a joke. I had several available. None of them reached my mouth. Another dizzy spell rolled through me, and I reached toward him before I could. Reconsider. You can come closer now. Caleb crossed the distance slowly, stopping several feet away. Are you certain? Yes. Noah, I need a clear answer. Yes, Caleb. Please sit with me. He lowered himself onto the carpet, but did not touch me. I moved first, leaning my shoulder against his arm. His scent settled around me without pressure, calm and steady, like shelter from weather I could not control. Caleb remained still until my breathing softened. Only then did he place one hand over the blanket near mine, close enough to reassure me, far enough to leave the choice entirely mine. Morning arrived pale and quiet. I woke against the couch with Caleb sitting nearby, still awake. The symptoms had faded. He held the empty medicine packet beneath the desk lamp, studying a tiny printed code near the torn edge. His expression had changed. What is it? I asked. Caleb turned the packet toward me. This batch number belongs to a Sterling Global subsidiary, he said, and this medication was never approved for sale. For the next 72 hours, Caleb treated the silver medicine packet like it was evidence from a crime scene and treated me like I might disappear if he looked away too long. He arranged a medical examination, paid for laboratory testing without attaching my name to the bill, and asked permission before sharing a single detail with his legal team. I should have felt grateful. Instead, I felt like a very nervous raccoon being escorted through a luxury department store. The test confirmed that the suppressant contained an unapproved scent stimulant. The batch had moved through a Sterling Global subsidiary managed by Grant Holloway, but the internal records were incomplete. Caleb believed someone at the anniversary gala would attempt to recover the packet or identify who had taken it. His plan required me to attend as temporary event staff and quietly observe. My plan involved staying home beneath 3 blankets and pretending rich people did not exist. Caleb won because he said the investigation might protect other Omegas who had purchased the same medication. That was how I ended up behind the ballroom stage when Grant found me. That was how Caleb crossed the room, offered me his jacket, and announced that I was under his claim. Now, cameras flashed while strangers whispered as if my life had become the evening entertainment. Caleb guided me through a private door with one hand hovering near my back, but never touching. The moment the door closed, I turned and struck his chest with my open palm. It was not hard enough to hurt him. It was hard enough to surprise both of us. "You claimed me," I said. Caleb did not move. "I created emergency legal protection. You told 300 people that I belonged to you. I know how it sounded. Do you?" My voice shook, and I hated that more than the cameras. People like Grant already think Omegas are property waiting for the correct alpha to sign the paperwork. "You did not ask me. You decided." Caleb looked toward the floor for one long second. Then he reached inside his jacket, remembered I was wearing it, and almost looked annoyed at the missing pocket. Under different circumstances, that might have been funny. He crossed to a side table, opened a leather folder, and placed a document in front of me. His signature was already at the bottom. "This releases the claim immediately," he said. I stared at the paper. "You prepared this before tonight?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because I knew you would not accept protection that became ownership." The anger inside me lost its footing but did not disappear. "Then why make the announcement?" Grant was invoking company medical authority. The fastest legal way to stop him was to place you under private protection. Caleb kept several feet between us, his expression controlled but not cold. I chose the only option available in that room. I should have found another before we entered it. I looked down at his signature. One line could end the claim. One line could also return me to a ballroom filled with people who had already decided what I was. "The press will still call me your Omega," I said. "Then I will correct them. They will call me a gold digger. Then they will answer to my legal department. That does not make it better." "No," Caleb said quietly. "It only makes it louder." I finally looked at him. The most powerful alpha in the building was not defending himself. He was waiting for my judgment. I picked up the pen, signed the release, and slid it back across the table. Caleb accepted it without hesitation. Then his phone vibrated. He read the message, and the color drained from his face. The laboratory had found something else inside the packet, a hidden data chip containing the names of dozens of Omega employees. By noon the next day, the story had escaped the ballroom and developed a life of its own. Every news site seemed to have chosen the same photograph of me wrapped in Caleb Sterling's jacket, looking less like a secret lover and more like someone who had misplaced the nearest exit. One headline called me a mysterious Omega companion. Another called me a former cleaner with expensive ambitions. Former was especially creative, since nobody had technically fired me. Human Resources had simply placed me on temporary leave while the company reviewed the incident, which was corporate language for stay home until the wealthy people finish panicking. My landlord chose that morning to remind me the rent was late. The heater chose the same morning to stop working. Apparently, my appliances followed financial news. I was wearing 2 sweaters and arguing with the radiator when someone knocked. I opened the door expecting another reporter and found Caleb standing in the hallway alone. No security team, no driver, no suit jacket. He wore dark jeans, a charcoal sweater, and the expression of a man who had just discovered that apartment buildings could have narrow staircases. "How did you find me?" I asked. "Your employee file." That answer is both practical and alarming. He held up a paper bag. "I brought food. That is how stray cats get adopted. I also brought the laboratory report." I let him inside. My apartment suddenly looked smaller, as if his shoulders had violated the floor plan. Caleb placed the food on the counter and noticed the blankets, the cold coffee, and the portable heater sitting open on the floor. "Your heat is broken. Nothing gets past you." He crouched beside the machine, rolled up his sleeves, and examined the wiring. The tattoos along his forearms looked entirely out of place beside my discount toolbox. "Do you know how to repair that?" I asked. "No, wonderful. I have always wanted to freeze beside a billionaire conducting an experiment." He glanced up. "You are welcome to supervise." It took him 20 minutes, one online instruction manual, and several quiet insults directed at a loose connection. When the heater finally hummed back to life, Caleb looked more pleased than he had after announcing a corporate acquisition on television. I laughed. I could not help it. The sound softened something in his face. Then the silence returned, gentler this time. I am sorry, he said. For the announcement. For bringing you into that room without a better plan. I protected you from Grant and still made your choice for you. I looked at the repaired heater. You could have sent money. You would have refused it. Correct. You might still refuse the food. That depends on whether you bought soup. Chicken noodle. You are learning. Caleb stepped closer, then stopped with a careful distance between us. His gaze moved to mine, steady and uncertain in a way I had never seen before. For one suspended second, I thought he might reach for me. He did not. He waited. I moved half a step forward, close enough to feel the quiet warmth of his scent, but my phone rang before either of us spoke. The laboratory technician sounded shaken. They had decrypted part of the hidden chip. The list was not limited to Sterling employees. It included hospital patients, low-income clinic records, and years of unauthorized suppressant trials. Then she read the first complete name. Evelyn Bennett. My mother. My mother's name turned the apartment silent. Even the repaired heater seemed to lower its voice. I asked the technician to send every file connected to Evelyn Bennett, then ended the call before my hands started shaking too badly to hold the phone. Caleb stood near the kitchen counter, perfectly still. That was the moment I noticed his expression. Not surprise. Recognition. You knew that name, I said. He did not answer quickly enough. My stomach dropped. Caleb, I saw Bennett in an internal report years ago. His voice was careful, which only made the truth feel sharper. The document listed patients affected by an early suppressant trial. Most names were partially hidden, but not hers. He looked at me. Not hers. I stepped away from him. The space between us had felt respectful before. Now it felt like evidence. When did you realize I was related to her? The night in my office, when I read your employee record. I laughed once, but there was nothing funny in it. So that is why you knew my name. Noah, I had noticed you before that. That is not an answer. I knew your name because I reviewed the overnight staffing list after seeing repeated complaints about unsafe conditions. I recognized your last name later. And you said nothing. Caleb lowered his gaze. I did not know whether Evelyn Bennett was your mother. I was trying to confirm it before involving you. You were trying to manage it. I was trying not to place another burden on you without facts. You let me believe this was random. My voice cracked, and I hated the sound. You let me believe you helped me because you saw me, not because my family was one more stain on the Sterling name. I did see you, did you? The words came faster now. Or did you see a chance to repair something your father broke? Caleb looked as though I had removed the ground beneath him, but he did not defend himself. That almost made it worse. I pulled his jacket from the back of the chair and held it out. The cedarwood scent that had once made me feel safe now seemed too heavy for the room. I do not need you to claim me, so you can forgive yourself for what your family did. He took the jacket slowly. I never wanted your forgiveness. Then what did you want? His answer came quietly. A chance to do the right thing without making you pay for it. I wanted to believe him. That was the problem. Belief had become expensive. My phone lit up with an unknown number. A message appeared beneath a photograph of my mother entering her clinic that morning. The words were simple. Bring the data chip to the Sterling board meeting tomorrow, or Evelyn Bennett loses access to the treatment program paying for her care. I read it twice before. Caleb saw my face. What happened? He asked. I turned the screen away. For the first time since meeting him, I did not know whether Caleb Sterling was the safest person in the room or the reason none of us had ever been safe at all. I showed Caleb the message the next morning, 5 minutes before the Sterling Global Board meeting began. He read it once, then handed the phone back without changing expression. That was how I knew he was furious. Caleb did not shout when he was angry. He became quiet enough to make everyone else hear themselves clearly. Your mother's treatment will continue, he said. Even if the company stops paying? Even if I have to sell the building? I almost made a joke about the poor accountants, but fear had taken up too much room in my throat. The boardroom sat on the 48th floor, wrapped in glass and morning sunlight. 12 directors waited around a polished table while Grant Holloway stood beside the presentation screen, smiling as though he had already won. I wore my cleaning uniform. Caleb had offered me something more formal, but I refused. If they were going to discuss people like my mother as numbers in a hidden file, they could look directly at the kind of worker their decisions had harmed. Grant's smile thinned when he saw me. This meeting is restricted. He is here at my request, Caleb said. For now, you still need my approval to remove him. The words "for now" settled across the room. Grant placed a resignation agreement in front of Caleb. If Caleb surrendered the data chip, the board would preserve his position, protect the company, and quietly continue every patient's medical support. It sounded generous until I understood what they were buying. Silence. Mine. My mother's. Dozens of others. Caleb looked at the papers, then at me. "You should take the deal," I whispered. "Your company can help more people if you stay. Not if staying requires me to become the reason they need help." He turned on the screen. Files appeared behind him. Trial dates. Clinic payments. Internal warnings. Names that had been reduced to identification numbers until the hidden list restored their humanity. Caleb explained everything, including his father's approval and his own failure to investigate sooner. No excuses. No careful corporate language. Just the truth, placed in the center of the room where nobody could step around it. The directors began talking over one another. Grant accused him of destroying decades of work for one poor Omega cleaner. Caleb faced him calmly. "No, I am ending a system that depended on people remaining invisible." He transmitted the records to federal regulators, patient advocates, and every major news organization at once. Phones began ringing across the table. The board voted before the hour ended. Caleb Sterling was removed as chief executive officer by 9 votes to 3. He signed the decision without hesitation. Investigators entered shortly afterward and escorted Grant away for questioning. Caleb watched the company he had spent his life building leave his control, then crossed the room toward me. He stopped several feet away. He did not offer his hand. He did not tell anyone I belonged beside him. "The claim is gone," he said quietly. "Your mother is protected through an independent medical fund. You do not owe me anything. You are free." Every camera in the hallway pointed toward us. I stepped forward before fear could negotiate with me. Then I took Caleb's wrist, turned it beneath the light, and pressed it gently against the scent patch near my collar. The cedarwood warmth settled around us. This time, nobody had chosen for me. 3 months later, the old Sterling Tower still looked exactly the same from the sidewalk, which felt rude considering how much had changed inside it. The board had invited Caleb back after the federal investigation cleared him of direct involvement and exposed the people who had hidden the suppressant trials. He agreed to return only after the company accepted new medical protections, independent oversight, and a legal fund for every affected Omega. I did not return as a cleaner. I came back as the first coordinator of the Worker Advocacy Office, which sounded much more impressive than the folding desk and 2 borrowed chairs we started with. My mother called it justice. I called it proof that nobody should underestimate a man who once spent 20 minutes arguing with a broken heater. Caleb never mentioned the night I pressed his wrist to my scent patch in front of the cameras. He did not treat it like a promise I owed him. He gave me space, sometimes too much space. For 3 weeks, our conversations were limited to policy drafts, medical reports, and whether the office coffee qualified as a human rights violation. Then one evening, I found him standing in my new office after everyone else had gone home. His tie was loose, his sleeves were rolled above his tattoos, and he was staring at the old cleaning cart parked beside my bookshelf. "You kept it," he said. "It has emotional value. It has one broken wheel. That wheel and I survived many difficult nights together." A streak of blue paint crossed the floor beneath a newly installed sign. Caleb looked at the mop leaning against the wall. I looked at Caleb. "Absolutely not," he said. 10 minutes later, the former Billionaire chief executive officer was trying to wring out a mop while I offered useless advice from a safe distance. He splashed water on his shoes. I laughed so hard that I had to sit on the desk. Caleb stared at the mess, then at me, and something in his expression softened. "I missed that sound," he said. The room became quiet. Not uncomfortable, just honest. He set the mop aside and walked toward me, stopping several feet away like he always did when a choice belonged to me. "Noah, I need to ask you something. That sentence has never improved my blood pressure. Are you ready for a bond that is real?" My heart moved carefully, as though it remembered every reason to be afraid, but had finally learned that fear was not the only voice allowed to speak. I stepped closer and touched the compass tattoo near his wrist. "You never claimed me," I said. "No, good." Caleb waited, his gray eyes steady. "Because I needed to know the difference between being protected and being chosen. And now," I placed his hand over mine. "Now I choose you." He closed his eyes for one quiet second, then rested his forehead against mine. No cameras, No board members. No announcement. Only cedar wood, cold rain, and the soft hum of the office lights above us. Outside the windows, the city stretched for miles beneath the evening sky. Caleb's jacket hung over the back of my chair, and when we finally left, we wore it across both our shoulders, walking side by side into the cold.